In today's tutorial, I'll show you how to make the viral Dubai Pistachio Konafa chocolate bar. I'll show you how to temper, mold, and color your bars, and how to wrap them for an elegant gift. I'm Kat, owner of Charmin Chic Baking, and welcome to my channel. For the filling, you'll need Kataifi dough that you can find in the frozen section of some grocery stores. I'm using half the box to make 6 large chocolate bars. This is still cold from the fridge, so you should bring it to room temperature before cutting into little pieces, which will make it much easier to cut. Next, melt 60 grams of unsalted butter in a frying pan. It will look like a lot of butter, but it's really not. Next, add the Kataifi and shred it with your hands to break it up. You want to mix it well to coat the Kataifi with the butter. I find it easier to use tongs. As it starts to toast, use a spatula to move the Kataifi from the sides to the middle, as it will toast quicker on the sides. It's starting to develop a nice golden brown color, so I'm going to keep shredding this with either my tongs or hands to break it up. Place a toasted Kataifi in a bowl to cool and shred any lumps with your hands. You want this to be finely shredded. After the Kataifi is completely cooled, add the tahini. Make sure the tahini is stirred well before because the oils will separate. I'm adding 50 grams. Next, add the pistachio butter. Some people use pistachio cream, but that's not pure pistachio as it's mixed with other oils and sugars. I'm using this brand that I got online and it's delicious. I'll post where to find it in the description below. I'm starting with 100 grams and then we'll check the consistency before adding additional pistachio butter. I'm going to add another 50 grams of pistachio butter. This filling is not sweet, but if you want to add a little sweetness to it, you can add some honey. Once the mixture is well blended, set aside. I'm using these hard polycarbonate molds, and as a beginner, I would suggest to use hard molds as opposed to silicone molds as they're easier to handle. You'll need a little cocoa butter to polish the molds to make the bar shiny. Melt the cocoa butter and with a cotton ball, lightly spread over each clean mold, getting into the cavities. You don't want to overdo it, just a little coat will do. Next, I'm going to give a little color to my chocolate bars with some colored cocoa butter. You'll need to melt this in the microwave for about 1.5 minutes in 30-second intervals to melt. Then, give it a good shake to temper. Dip a clean toothbrush into the cocoa butter and with your finger, give the mold some splatters. If you don't have colored cocoa butter, you can use luster dust with a little bit of vodka to make a medium paste consistency. Dip in a toothbrush and give it a few splatters. Next, we're going to temper the chocolate, which I'll explain this very thoroughly. I'm using 600 grams of chocolate to start, which is enough for 9 to 12 molds, but for 6 molds, you'll only need 400 grams for this step. For the seed chocolate, you'll need half of the previous amount, so in this case, I'll be using 300 grams, but for 6 molds, 200 grams is enough. So you'll have 600 grams of total chocolate. In a double boiler, melt the 400 grams of chocolate. Once it starts melting, lower the heat all the way down and check the temperature with a candy or instant read thermometer. For milk chocolate, you'll want the chocolate to be at 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the chocolate reaches 113 degrees, remove from the heat and place it on a cold surface to start the cooling process. What we're doing next is adding the remaining chocolate called the seed chocolate to start the tempering process. Once chocolate is melted, the crystalline structure of the chocolate is broken, and in order for the chocolate to have that nice shiny surface and hard snap, we need to get it back to its original structure, which is done by adding tempered chocolate to it as it cools. Yes, this may sound very scientific, but it's also very necessary. If you don't temper your chocolate, the chocolate will be soft after cooling and will develop gray spots on the surface called bloom. It'll still be edible, but it won't look so appealing. So we're going to start by adding 1/3 of the seed chocolate and stir from the outside in, as it will cool and harden on the sides first. After the first addition, the chocolate should have cooled by 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Add another 1/3 of the seed chocolate and keep mixing. I'm just speeding up this step, but you want to stir slowly to avoid bubbles and always from the outside in until the chocolate has melted. Add the last of the seed chocolate and keep stirring until you've reached 81 degrees Fahrenheit. This may take between 5 to 10 minutes or so depending on how much chocolate you're tempering. The chocolate will look like runny pudding and will leave streaks without melting into the pool. You'll notice the chocolate hardening on the spatula, and you can just use a scraper or offset spatula to scrape it off and put it back into the pool of chocolate. The temperature is at 81 Fahrenheit and the chocolate should now be tempered. At this temperature, the chocolate is too thick to work with, so we need to warm it up slightly. You want it between 86 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, but not past 90 degrees, otherwise it will be out of temper and you will have to repeat the whole process over. You can put the bowl of chocolate back on the double boiler, but I'm going to be using a heat gun as it's easier to manage, and it's the way I was taught at the Berry Chocolate Academy. Just keep it on low setting and heat the sides of the bowl only, as you want to avoid burning the chocolate. Heat guns heat up quite a bit, so you'll only heat about 20 to 30 seconds to get the chocolate up to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm testing to see if the chocolate is tempered by dipping a small piece of aluminum foil and see how it hardens. After 2 minutes, the chocolate should have hardened, looks shiny, and peels off easily from the aluminum foil. Congratulations, you've successfully tempered your chocolate. To form the bars, as a beginner, I would recommend making 1 bar at a time. You want to fill the cavity until full, clean off the edges with an offset spatula, then shake to coat the chocolate to the edges and corners of the mold. Then give it a few taps to remove bubbles. It's much easier to work with a hard or polycarbonate mold for this reason. Then invert the mold over the bowl of chocolate and use a scraper or something hard to tap the mold on the sides to remove the excess chocolate. We just want a thin layer of chocolate to be able to add the most amount of filling. These molds aren't very deep, so if you want more filling in your bars, you'll need to find molds that are deeper. Scrape off the excess chocolate from the sides of the mold, then place upside down on parchment paper to dry and harden as you continue to work with another mold. Once you've done all the molds, fill them with Pistachio Konafa filling, pressing down and covering to the top of the molds. Keep the chocolate warm in between. To finish off the bars, spread a layer of chocolate over top. Use a spatula to spread it evenly, and don't worry too much about the sides as we'll fix that up later. Tap the molds to pop any air bubbles. Once you're done with the chocolate, simply spread it on parchment paper to harden. You can then reuse this chocolate for other recipes, so chocolate never goes to waste. Once the chocolate bars are hardened, simply tap them down on the counter and they should easily release. You can then clean the edges with a steel scraper. To wrap the chocolate bars, I'm using both gold foil that I got from Amazon and decorative paper from Michaels. I'll put the link to the supplies in the description below. Use either glue or a little double-sided tape to help if needed. It's definitely harder to wrap when you have gloves on. And here's the final result. The chocolate bars are beautiful and shiny, especially with that extra little luster dust. Here's what the chocolate bars look like inside. It may not seem like much filling, but the filling is mostly in those pockets that you can see when cut. These chocolate bars are so delicious, crunchy and creamy at the same time and not overly sweet, just the right balance. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and have fun making these bars in different shapes and even colors. Please leave your comments or questions below as I'm more than happy to answer them. Happy chocolate making!